Hello everybody, Jediwarlock here and welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today we are returning to the world of Warcraft for a deep dive and lore theory into one of the most interesting zones in Wrath of the Lich King. In the far east of Northrend lies Zul'Drak, a massive temple city home to the Drakari ice trolls, who are facing extinction from the marauding undead scourge. Despite what you might think about the quality of the quests or the gameplay aspects of the zone, I think Zul'Drak has a lot to offer in terms of narrative, and what isn't said here is almost as important as what is said about the condition of this failing state. The way this grand capital is presented to players is unlike anything else in classic WoW, and today I'm going to go beyond the lore to delve into what is going on in this zone and what else is happening behind the scenes that is never told to us in-game. As always, I want to thank you all for your support, and I hope you enjoy this video. So, with all that being said, let's get right into it and explore the empire of Zul'Drak. The Fall of the Drakari is a story told in 4 parts, corresponding to the 4 levels of Zul'Drak itself. On the first level, the region's invasion by the Scourge is the most apparent, with 2 massive Scourge necropoli, Voltaris and Zeramis, shepherding legions of undead into the zone. This war comes as a follow-up to the events of Draktherin Keep, where the Scourge dismantled much of the Drakari forces and took control of the citadel. On the bottom level of the city, undead roam across the plagued ground, and the trees are being corrupted by dark powers. The troll buildings here are largely deserted, and the nearby Wolvar tribe, once allies of the Drakari, are now under attack by reanimated trolls. The Argent Crusaders and the Knights of the Ebon Blade, 2 sides of the same coin when it comes to fighting the Scourge, both have small camps in the area, and it is here where adventurers make their first strikes against the undead. The first level of Zul'Drak is where the brunt of the attack has occurred thus far, and the Drakari land has suffered much, with the forests and fields warped into something more akin to the Plaguelands of Lordaeron. Stone foundations and the central roadways are the only remnants of troll civilization here, with the different levels of the city undoubtedly hosting various classes of troll society. This lowest level is likely where many of the commoners and peasants once called home. Even though the remaining buildings in this level are limited, I would not be surprised if many wooden structures like those seen in Zeb Halak in the Grizzly Hills once existed, but have since been burned away. The blackened ground near Thrim's End could be seen as further evidence of this. Given its proximity to Draktherin Keep, this area could have also once hosted a strong military presence, and the nature-oriented landscape of the level could lend itself to serving as a training or hunting ground for the Drakari's raptor companions. With the fall of the keep and now the first level of the city proper, much of the culture here has already been lost to history. Completing the story of the first level will have players witness the elimination of Scourge leadership in the area, and while the Rageclaw Wolvar are spared from extinction, the blighted environment and the decimated troll population are stains on the land that will not soon heal. Ascending the grand staircase to the second level of Zul'Drak reveals a much different part of the capital, one that introduces several key themes and concepts relevant to the story. Level 2 is a transitive area, where the major players of the zone all intersect, with interesting consequences. The Argent Crusaders have pushed forward to a central pavilion they have renamed the Argent Stand, though their rear guard is hassled by encroaching undead. The living Drakari also unveil their first example of heresy against their own gods, or Loa, in this area. The altar of Ceratus, once home to Ceratus the serpent god, is no longer a holy site for the trolls. In order to compensate for their dwindling defenses against the scourge, the Drakari shamans and their leader the prophet have slain the physical form of Ceratus to consume untold power. The prophet is now cursed with a snake-like visage, and in his madness now seeks to annihilate both the scourge and the Argent Crusaders who would stand against the undead. Remember this betrayal, as it will not be the last we witness as the story of Zul'Drak unfolds. The remaining structure of this level is mainly composed of crumbling stonework, forgotten gardens and fields, and a few working aqueducts that preside over the dreary crops. The larger districts, denoted as Drak Sotra and Drak Agal, were likely once hubs for commerce and tradesmen, the inhabitants now slain or worse. This level really works to convey the size and scale of the Drakari Empire, with the aqueducts and sprawling structures showing the imperial might of the zone. Though much has been razed, burned, or flooded in the destruction caused by the Scourge, the sheer amount of space this cityscape covers is remarkable, especially since the troll civilizations seen up to this point in the game, perhaps apart from Zul'Aman, are not organized in this capacity. Even the quest setup in this level contributes to the theme of securing a city, with the patrol quest sending you to 4 different areas of the area to deal with ongoing threats. There are 2 remaining features to deal with on this level. The Amphitheater of Anguish, once a gladiatorial center for the warlike Drakari, now sits mostly abandoned. Gone are the days of massive crowds and glorious troll combat, and now only a few denizens remain, a profiteering goblin, a handful of challengers, and a couple spectators from distant lands, drawn here by circumstance alone. The gong hangs silent, and the entire arena stands as both a testament to Zul'Drak's former grandeur and current decay. In the southeast, Kol Ramis slumps against the wall protecting the 3rd level, on fire and spewing sickly golden blight into the ground. It is said that the Drakari brought down the mighty vessel as it attempted to reach its destination, though the means by which they succeeded is uncertain. Ballista or physical methods seem unlikely, but the Bat Riders of Heb Drakar on the 3rd level could have accomplished this. It is also possible one of the other prophets, who we'll discuss in due time, recklessly used Loa magic to bring down the necropolis. Players assisting the Argent Crusade here find out that a shipment of serenite, a corruptive ore mined in Icecrown, was on board the floating citadel, which begs the question, why? Well, we know that serenite is a major plot point in this expansion, and functions primarily to warp the minds of those exposed to it, turning them insane from the influence of the old god Yogg-Saron. Though the old god and the Lich King are not working together, at least not directly, I predict that this shipment of ore could have once been meant for the Drakari high royalty or prophets, or perhaps even the Loa themselves. If the Scourge was able to reach the 3rd level directly using the floating Kol Ramis, invading the altars of the Loa and using dark rituals to corrupt the gods would not be out of the realm of possibility. In any event, the Scourge was halted from reaching the upper levels of the city, and the damage from the necropolis is contained in the Drak Sotra district. After completing the 2nd level of Zul'Drak, players will have witnessed the intersecting forces working to claim the region, the limits of the Scourge's ongoing invasion, and the fall of a god. But there is still much more to uncover in this fallen kingdom. The Drukhari are not the only trolls to be found within Zul'Drak. From beyond the frozen sea and far to the south have come the Zandalari trolls, another tribe of high civilization. From the rival imperial state of Zandalar, a group of preservers have arrived in the accursed capital to document Zul'Drak's society. An empire is being lost to history by the hour, and these trolls are here not to assist the Crusaders or even stave off the Drukhari's self-inflicted end, but to chronicle the culture that is being lost. Ascending another gigantic staircase into the snow-covered third level of Zul'Drak, one of the first locations players will find is the outpost of Zim Torga, the main base for the Zandalari in the region. Many of the quests here have you collecting tablets or recovering items for the trolls to take back to Zandalar, and it's refreshingly nihilistic to participate in this scramble for knowledge amid the chaos. The Drukhari are doomed, and the Zandalari are just along for the ride. Speaking of doomed, the Loa are not faring well in this region. Continuing on with the sacrificial practices of the second level, the prophets have turned on more of their own deities in an attempt to rebuke the Scourge's advance. There are 3 shrines here, the altars of Harkoa, Runok, and Quetz'Lun, powerful Loa of the snow leopards, Arctic bears, and wind serpents respectively. Quetz'Lun has been slain, and the prophets of Runok and Harkoa are working to sap the other 2 of their powers. The major quests on this level, in addition to serving the wishes of the Zandalari, involve trekking across the landscape and working with the spirits of the Loa to take vengeance upon the Dark Prophets. One of the most interesting aspects of this area is the sudden decrease in structures found here. Compared to the more residential tradesmen's district on the second level, the third seems to be indicative of a more religious focus, the main setting for priests and shamans practicing worship to the Loa. The Bat Rookery at Hebdrakar may further support this idea, as while it is not listed as an official altar or shrine, the building displays several shrine-like displays of bats. Though the ground is blanketed by snow and could hide many more secrets, the one I think that can be uncovered is Drak Mabwa, found just south of the altar of Runok. This large crater, filled with water from the broken aqueduct that lies in shambles nearby, was created during the Prophet of Runok's first attempt at absorbing the Loa's power, which resulted in a large explosion. Now, the snowy crater is all that remains, and earth elementals linger on here, unsettled by the destruction. There is no official evidence as to what this location was before the catastrophe, but judging from the previous names Drak Agal and Drak Sotra we have seen so far, it seems plausible Drak Mabwa could have once hosted a small structure or set of structures designed to house the various priests of Zul'Drak. This seems to be the most straightforward answer to me, using only the naming conventions of the zone, but I'm sure there are other explanations as well. Before we move to the 4th and final level of Zul'Drak, one very important facet of this zone's story comes to the forefront in this level: the Forgotten Gods. At the Zandalari camp of Zim Torga, players can find a simple shrine at its center. This is the shrine of Zim Torga herself, a minor Loa forgotten by the Drukhari in recent years. This naming convention is shared with 3 other locations on the map: Zim Abwa on the 2nd level, Zim Rook on the 3rd level, and Dubra Jin on the 4th level, each name matching the shrine of the minor god found there. With the exception of Dubra Jin, who interacts solely with the Zandalari residents of the camp, The other three gods interact directly with the player on their adventures in the zone, offering blessings once proper tribute has been paid. This spiritual aid is, in my opinion, a perfect reflection of the Drakari's folly. While the Loa who possess powerful physical forms are targeted and subjugated by the prophets for their great power, they fail to recognize the metaphysical spirits of the gods who have risen against their once loyal subjects. The four minor gods are the best example of this resistance, as, despite being unable to take on a physical form in the zone, they bestow power through their shrines to those who would see their enemies defeated. Also, the fact that these buffs only apply while the player is inside Zul'Drak, Draktheron Keep, or the Gundrak Dungeon accentuates the power of the Loa. These are the patron gods of the Empire, and it makes sense their spheres of influence, at least those of the minor gods, are bound to the land itself. The end of the penultimate level of the capital will see the player resolving many of the major threats here, but Harkoa, the one surviving Loa, and the spirits of the others are intent on helping players push forward to the Citadel of Gundrak on the final level of the city. After climbing another staircase, the most impressive one yet, players will arrive at the 4th level of the city, a sparsely populated series of temples and buildings leading to Gundrak, the High Temple of the Drakari. If the previous level corresponded to the religious caste of Zul'Drak, the final level is where the elite of Troll society once dwelled, the High Prophets, the military leaders, and perhaps once the Imperial family. 2 Loa were once worshipped here, Mamtoth, Loa of the woolly mammoths, and Akali, mightiest of all the Loa in the Empire, and god of the Arctic rhinos. Mamtoth, who destroyed his physical form to prevent his power from being stolen, left a massive glowing crater in his wake, which can be found in the southern area of the level. Akali, once revered beneath Gundrak in the Grand Ritual Chamber, is held captive at the foot of the citadel, being prepared for the final sacrifice. A triumphant scene for the Drakari, who believe these practices will be their salvation against the undead. In their journey to rescue the trapped Akali, the player ventures into the nearby Zul'Maz stronghold, where Warlord Zul'Maz and his family are protected by a series of enchanted tiki warriors. These magic spears, devoid of any wielder, are another piece of evidence that shows the sheer devastation of the Drakari military. Apart from the assaults on the altars, and within Gundrak itself, there are very few troll warriors left to defend the besieged nation. It is heavily implied that Warlord Zul'Maz is, in fact, the leader of the military here, and the story presents him almost as a military dictator, a Drakari noble hiding his family in his stronghold against the coming storm. The remainder of this level ultimately serves to build toward the climactic finale of the zone, the Gundrak Dungeon. The Zandalari have reclaimed the small shrine of Dubrajin in the north, and while Drakari forces dot the royal district outside the temple, the plateau is mostly abandoned. After a failed attempt to rescue the Loa Akali from the prophets, players have but one choice: to enter Gundrak and put a stop to the plans of the Drakari once and for all. Contrary to what players may expect looking at the map of the zone, the Gundrak dungeon seen in-game is not the mighty castle or temple shown on the 3D map art, but is instead a series of subterranean ritual chambers and pools located far below the surface. I know there are those who lament the loss of a Gundrak raid that may have taken place in the main temple, and I'll get to that along with a lore theory, but first, let's take a quick look at the dungeon and its inhabitants. Within the intricately carved halls and passages, 3 high prophets oversee the final defense of the city against intruders. The high prophets of Seratus, Mamtoth, and Akali have retained the majority of each Loa's energy within their bodies, and now wield the powers of the animal gods to great effect. In defeating these 3 heretics, along with a strange stone colossus and an even stranger aquatic beast, the depths of Gundrak are freed from corruption against the gods, and the Loa may now find peace. The biggest question, maybe apart from what is the giant snaketail doing down here, are the unknowns surrounding the pinnacle of Gundrak. Did a royal family once live here? Who is the true ruler of Zul'Drak? And why do we never get to see inside? These are all questions without official answers. While the simplest answer is that the developers just didn't create those answers due to having other priorities, that answer isn't fun, and I have some ideas on what could be a more realistic in-game explanation. From the current power dynamic in the Drakari forces that players face in this zone, it seems that Warlord Zul'Maz and Gul Dara, the High Prophet of Akali, are equally in control of the mad troll forces, perhaps sharing power between the military and spiritual divisions. It is unknown if this is the regular hierarchy within the Drakari Empire, but in my opinion, it is not. In Mists of Pandaria, we learn the surviving trolls rally under the banner of Frost King Malak, indicating the trolls follow some type of monarchy. During this expansion, however, I think this monarchy was subverted in some sort of coup in order to push a more bloodthirsty agenda. If the royal family of Zul'Drak was against sacrificing their own gods, this could put them at odds with Zul'Maz and the Mad Prophets pushing for an extreme solution to the Scourge invasion. With these factions facing a life or extinction decision, the military could have, shall we say, forcefully removed the royal family from power to unify the trolls toward their cause. Why do we never see inside the grand spires of Gundrak? Because, for all its projected might, it is nothing more than a fallen castle, profaned by those driven to protect their home at any cost. With the end of Zul'Drak's story coming with the fall of the High Prophets, little to nothing remains of the Drakari Empire. Plagued farmlands, unrecognizable markets and homes, and crumbling aqueducts showcase how this once great society has been destroyed by threats from both without and within. A bleak landscape, a lone god, an empty throne. If you take away one thing from this video, consider that Zul'Drak took some risks in how it presented its narrative, but nonetheless delivered a complex, beautiful product that tells a different kind of story within the Warcraft universe. The story of how an empire falls. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment down below with your thoughts, and subscribe if you're new to join the Jedi Order. I leave you all today with the incredible music of Zul'Drak that's been playing throughout this entire video, and I hope that next time you visit this zone, you'll take a look at it from a new perspective. Until next time, may the Force be with you.